And we are also cooperating, for example, when it comes to enhancing our resilience against diseases and animal diseases. All of that following the principle that it is always in line that we have to develop African solutions for African challenges. And this is why Germany has been so committed to enhancing the vaccine production on the African continent. South Africa and Germany are also partners in the field of the arts, culture and education. Already, 8,000 people in South Africa are learning German. That is a success, and it's also an incentive for us to awaken an interest in Germany amongst more African people, young people, because we are convinced that we can learn a lot from one another as societies. We also share a similar perspective with regard to the way in which we deal with global challenges. We share the belief that multilateralism, human rights, and a rules-based order should form the framework of our political approaches. And this objective is more relevant today than ever before. This is why we're working together to make the United Nations more effective and more representative. This also includes enlarging the UN Security Council to include 2 permanent seats for Africa. During our bilateral exchange today, we also talked about the many wars and crises that I mentioned at the outset of my statement. We both agreed that the international community has to enhance its efforts in order to end the immeasurable suffering of the people in Sudan. We value South Africa's contribution to the political process of the African Union. We also share a similar view of the situation in the Gulf area. Now that a ceasefire has been reached, the parties involved are called upon to create a robust, durable peace in the region. Those who suffer under the impact of the wars, and the same goes for Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, are especially affected, and this includes our partners in Africa. Dear Ronald, the range of subjects of our talks today illustrates how comprehensive and close our cooperation already is. In order to deepen it further in a systematic and continuing fashion, we decided today to upgrade our partnership, our relations, to a strategic partnership. With our joint action plan, which aims to enhance multilateralism and strengthen the cooperation in the field of critical raw materials and in the area of reducing impediments to trade and investments, we will make better use of our potential. Thank you for being here today in order to head the Binational Commission with me today. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may, before I conclude, briefly comment on the outcome of elections in Hungary. How convincingly and clearly voters yesterday expressed their decision in favor of Europe and thereby in favor of strengthening cohesion, solidarity, and for a better future of their country has been very impressive for me to see. We feel that spirit of optimism and have extended our hands to Hungary. We aim to renew and expand relations between Germany and Hungary for a stronger Hungary and for a stronger Europe. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, it is my great honor to address you today at the 12th South Africa-Germany Binational Commission. And what a milestone this session represents. 30 years ago, President Nelson Mandela and Chancellor Helmut Kohl established this commission as an act of faith. Faith that 2 nations shaped by very different histories could build a partnership of genuine depth. Today, that faith has been amply vindicated. This year again is also a very special year for the people of South Africa, as it marks 30 years of our Constitution. We celebrate this Constitution because it represents the values of democracy, dignity, and a free world that South Africa is today. And we are very grateful as you can see from this binational commission that is also 30 years, that Germany has been with us throughout our democratic journey. This is also a value we share with Germany. Minister Wadephul and I have had candid, wide-ranging and productive discussions on bilateral cooperation, on the state of our world, and on the role our two countries can play in making it more stable, more just, and more prosperous. We have agreed, as he has already mentioned, to upgrade our bilateral relationship to a formal strategic partnership, reflecting the maturity and ambition of what South Africa and Germany have built together, and us moving together into the future. The joint action plan to be signed today carries 15 areas of deepened cooperation. And let me highlight a few. Germany has committed a new concessional climate loan of 200 million euros under the Just Energy Transition Partnership, supporting South Africa's continued acceleration of grid and renewable investment. We have extended our green hydrogen and battery value chain cooperation, including more than 270 million euro in German and EU funding, a partnership that puts South Africa at the heart of the global green industrial economy. We have launched a critical raw materials inducement price to support entrepreneurs in beneficiation, and we've agreed to quarterly trade consultations to advance the EU-South Africa Clean Trade Investment Partnership. I am particularly pleased that Germany's Investing for Peace initiative will establish a regional secretariat in South Africa. Peace and development are inseparable, and this partnership puts resources behind that conviction. It's not just rhetoric. You can see it and you can touch it. Our long-standing cooperation in science and technology, vocational training, health, the arts, culture is also deepening, as he had already mentioned. And we look forward to this continuous cooperation. The relationship between Germany and South Africa, you can feel it in the streets of South Africa. Anywhere you drive, anywhere you walk, through the various automotive products that are manufactured in our country through this partnership. Anywhere in South Africa, you will see a BMW, you will see Mercedes-Benz. But not only that, the foundations from Germany are playing a key role in our society on a number of initiatives. And for this, South Africa remains very grateful for this cooperation. On vocational training, Germany is one of the leading countries in our education system. You can see the skills development and the cooperation. And we continue to see this being exchanged and being a two-way stream. And we also understand the evolution in the automotive sector. And we are saying to Germany, let's hold hands together, evolve together with the evolving dynamic in the automotive sector through research and development, through cutting-edge technology, quantum advancement that will continue to build this partnership. On geopolitical issues, we also engage with regards to the issue of Sudan and appreciate and welcome the conference on humanitarian that is being held. And as South Africa will continue to call for the warring factions in Sudan to cease hostilities, to come to the negotiation table through a process that the African Union has initiated. On the Middle East and Ukraine and the reform of international institutions, we also spoke frankly. And I know that we do not agree on every issue, but we had engaged as genuine partners with mutual respect and a shared commitment to international law. With regards to the Middle East and South Africa, we continue to call for cessation of hostilities and for the current ceasefire to hold on the strike of the US and Israel into Iran. We have condemned this as violation of Article 2.4 of the UN Charter. And we have similarly condemned Iran's retaliatory attacks on the Gulf countries, in particular where there was no evidence that the attacks emanated from such Gulf countries as a violation too of international law. And we'll continue to call for peace in the Eastern DRC and many parts of our continent, including on the Russia-Ukraine war. And we look forward to continue to work with Germany to build peace and friendship across the globe. We also agree on the UN reform in line with the Pact of the Future, for the African continent to have 2 permanent seats in the UN Security Council, and also the reform of the global financial architecture as a conclusion of the G20 declaration in South Africa. We also want to thank Germany for its participation and its unwavering support of South Africa's presidency of the G20 in the year 2025. We know that we are currently excluded from the G20 by the current president, the US, despite South Africa being a full member of the G20. But the voice of German support has made us not to feel excluded. We feel we are part of it because of the support that we have received from Germany and from other G20 members. The 30 years of the BNC is not an ending, it is a foundation. South Africa and Germany face a more uncertain world together, and together we are better placed to meet it because of the shared experience of the last 30 years of the BNC's existence and cooperation. And with this experience and this lived reality, we will be able to build for a more and a better future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dann kommen wir jetzt zu den Fragen. Die erste Frage.
Let us begin with the questions. Reuters. Thank you, Alexander Ratz, Reuters. Regarding the G20 process, Minister Wadephul, in the face of the new strategic partnerships, would it be conceivable for Germany to represent interests of South Africa in the G20? And Minister Lamola.
Support the German application for a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Thank you.
Minister Lamola hat ja
Minister Lamola quite rightly described that I thanked him and his government for the successful presidency of South Africa of the G20. As the federal government, we had an extraordinarily successful cooperation with South Africa and will continue to do so in the framework of the G20. And the problems of the day have to be discussed and settled with the presidency. We try to be helpful in that regard. But for us, South Africa continues to be an important partner of the G20. With regard to the topics of the Global South have to be addressed. That is quite clear for the federal government. We view ourselves in a tradition of preceding governments. We believe that the Global South has to carry greater weight in the world, as I underlined today, and we both see eye to eye on this. We see the need for 2 permanent seats for the African continent on the Security Council of the United Nations. That is only the expression of our shared understanding. And as far as that is concerned, we would be willing, in the framework of the means that we have, to also represent or voice interests of South Africa, should that not be possible right now.
Yeah, thank you very much. With regards to the Security Council, the candidature of Germany is receiving our highest positive consideration. As we have said, with the highest strategic partnership and the 30 years of cooperation between the two countries that we are deepening today, we have got a history of reciprocity. And South Africa will also be standing in the year 2031, 2032. So we have always positively looked into Germany's candidature in various multilateral fora. Hence, I say it is receiving our highest positive consideration at the highest level in South Africa. Thank you.
Die nächste Frage kommt von Herrn
DPA, Mr. Blank. Next question. Thank you. Minister, question to both of you. You mentioned Iran and the negotiations. Do you believe that the partial blockade of the Strait of Hormuz by the United States is a suitable means to deal and to revive the negotiations that have come to a standstill? Are you afraid that this might trigger kind of escalation? We believe it to be of the utmost importance that negotiations continue. I said so and made that clear even before the Islamabad negotiations. I was involved. I traveled to the region and talked to our partners there, and will continue to do so even now that the talks have stopped, which is not to say that they are dead. I expect them to continue, if not in Islamabad, then elsewhere. The ceasefire continues to stand, and I cannot but urge both sides to use this period. This is in the interest of the international community. It's in the interest of the region we are talking about. It's also in the interest of the three parties to the conflict who've set out on this pathway, trying to find a negotiated solution. But let me add, I strongly support the American position that we need to have a credible and sound assurance from the Iranian government or leadership that they will not strive to achieve a nuclear weapon. This has to be credible. This has to be we have to be in a position to check whether this is the case. And if that assurance is sound and sustainable, I think we will be able to solve all the other issues too. It has been at the core of our efforts of the negotiations of the E3 with Iran. And that issue continues to be there out in the world. But the need to continue these negotiations in an intensive fashion, it's there, and I think that everyone is aware of this. That is what I hear. It is worth the sweat and the tears of those who try to do their best, because the world at large is impacted by what is happening there. We have negotiations here in order to reduce energy prices and fuel prices here. On the African continent, there is a widespread fear that this might trigger a widespread period of starvation amongst people, outbreak of hunger, because goods cannot be transported without fuels. So it is urgent to clarify these matters and to make sure that the Strait of Hormuz, which is an international route of navigation and shipping, is free for passage. It is otherwise a violation of the international law of the sea, which has to be respected by all parties involved. We all have to work hard to focus on this being achieved, and this is the priority of diplomatic efforts of the federal government. Table media. Please use the microphone. Minister, please feel free to respond.
Thank you very much. As I've said earlier on, we as South Africa have condemned the violation of Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, particularly by the first strike of US and Israel. And this first strike happened when negotiations with regards to the nuclear capabilities of Iran were at an advanced stage, almost towards finding an amicable solution. And I'm glad that Germany was part of the countries that were facilitating that. And as South Africa, we believe in diplomacy, we are anti-war, and if negotiations are at an advanced stage, almost to find a solution, we believe there was no need for the strike by the US and Israel against Iran. And secondly, the retaliatory strike by Iran, I'd already said, particularly where there was no evidence that the strikes that happened to Iran emanated from the Gulf countries, was also in violation of international law. So what is our current position? We agree with Germany that the negotiations is the only path. The negotiations must continue. The dialogue must be deepened, and a comprehensive, durable, peaceful solution must be found. And the only way to find it is on the negotiation table. We are very disappointed that 21 hours into the negotiations, it has abruptly ended. With a conflict of this nature, it takes long to find each other. So we believe that the parties must be patient with each other. They must give more room and leeway to the engagements and to the negotiations. And we are not speaking out of being naive or shallow-minded as South Africa. We are a product of negotiations. And the negotiations in our country took long, took patience, took people building even personal relations to enable the platform of negotiations to mature to a level where the parties can trust each other, can reach a form of agreement. And that's why we're celebrating 30 years of constitution in South Africa, is because these negotiations will have never been easy when there is a conflict. And that is what we call for patience, for tolerance, and for a leeway to open up the engagement from all the parties. And we do not think that the blockade will help the negotiations, because if the first negotiations were disrupted by the American strike in Israel, it is clear to us that the parties need to build confidence measures that will lead them to a peaceful solution. But if the parties are not building on the peace on the confidence measures, but continuing with military operation, it does not augur well for the negotiations. So we think that more efforts must be directed to negotiations and to build confidence measures that will build trust between the parties. Thank you.
Dann jetzt Herr Renke.
Mr. Renke.
Mr. Lamola, since tomorrow there will also be a high-level business dialogue, I think you also will be attending, and you both mentioned the automotive industry and the German car manufacturers in South Africa. What are your expectations from a business side? Will there be also a new strategic partnership in the business area?
Yeah, my expectation is a continued a partnership, particularly on research and development, to evolve in the various sectors that South Africa and Germany are invested in, particularly the automotive sector, which is now taking a huge evolution with electronic vehicles coming in. South Africa has, our DTIC has recently released policy paper to incentivize in the space of electric vehicles, battery manufacturing, and so forth. So that my expectation is that one that there will be a continuous commitment from German companies to partner with South Africa in this space. We also have some of the top universities to respond to this evolution, partnership and research, and to look forward to see more German companies staying, building, and growing in South Africa, like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, VW, and many of the companies that are invested in the automotive sector, that they need to evolve with us as the global community is evolving. But there are also other sectors that I have already mentioned where there is a clear commitment, just energy transition, and many other sectors, including pharmaceutical manufacturing, that we expect to see more German companies coming into the space to invest in. And that platform will also be used to clarify on a number of issues that impact the German companies' investment in our country.
And we have one more question by Mr. Young. Are you? I'm so sorry.
Simon Young, Deutsche Welle. A couple of questions for Minister Lamola. Just coming back to the conflict in the Middle East. Could you say something to us about how the conflict in the Middle East is affecting South Africa? And also on diplomacy, you've just said you believe that tolerance and patience will win the day. Is there anything that gives you confidence that diplomacy can actually achieve a solution, especially when you listen to the remarks coming from Washington? And also, a big part of the cooperation between South Africa and Germany is about green technology. So particularly in the current context, how important are things like renewable energy sources and green hydrogen and so on? And perhaps if I may also to Minister Wadephul, you mentioned Hungary. Do you expect after these elections Germany's relationship with Hungary to change, and if so, how? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the first one, it's a difficult question because you expect me to predict the behavior in Washington. What has characterized the current administration in Washington is exactly that, unpredictability. And in a conflict of this nature, you do need predictability, you do need certainty, you do need patience, you do need tolerance, you need all the factors that, when combined, can test human endurance. And I think that's what we need in the Iran-US situation, where all the parties will have to have those factors. And this includes Washington in terms of tolerance, in terms of patience. And that's why I gave an example with ourselves, that it took us a long time, our negotiations, to come up with a solution. And because of the setback, strategic setback that has happened when the parties were almost close to an amicable solution in Geneva on the nuclear question and on the ceasefire that was there last year, it is clear now that the trust is broken. So you need confidence-building measures to rebuild the trust. And that is the reason why I say we need that. Whether I believe those elements are there or not, I will not have said it if I believed they are there. That we need these confidence-building measures to rebuild the trust for the parties to continue with the negotiations, because all of us knows that without the negotiations, there will not be a military solution to this conflict. It must end at the negotiation table. It will not be resolved through the barrel of a gun or the dropping of a missile or drones. It will be resolved on the negotiation table. And South Africa has always been anti-war, encouraged negotiations. We believe these are the values that have carried the world since the Second World War. We should continue with them. On the issue of green hydrogen and the issue of just transition, we have had very productive and positive partnership with Germany in terms of the just energy transition, investments in billions of rands in our program. That is, has now taken off on the ground in South Africa with a number of green technologies already on the ground as we speak, our energy grid, and also investments that we believe can grow in the green hydrogen ammonia platform. And that's why we're here to renew this strategic partnership, because we've seen it is working, and we can build from here to do more and be able to respond to our energy needs as a country in an environmentally sustainable way. And Germany has enabled this partnership to become possible.
No, for us, the results of the Hungarian elections, of course, were very impressive, because the opposition, of course, was faced with obstructions you would normally not see in a member of the European Union. But this was a very, in the end of the day, it was a success story for democracy, for the idea of Europe, for human rights, for democracy. And of course, it was a great sign of solidarity within Europe, especially against Russia, which, of course, tried to have some influence on the voters in Hungary. So Germany is ready to bring our relations again to a new level and to work as closely as even possible together with the new Hungarian government, because Europe needs a strong Hungary. We will never forget the very first days when the Iron Curtain was cut through Hungarian hands. And so if we go back to that situation, this is a very broad basis for both our countries and the governments as well.
Thank you very much. This ends the... Yeah. Du musst jetzt rennen, ne?